My 8-bit Do Ultimate controller is my favorite for a few reasons, but mostly it's the feeling in hand and the elegant design on my desk. But the Gamesir Nova is 42% cheaper than the 8-bit Do Ultimate controller, with very little downside, except for one big one. That's what she said. Okay, let's talk design. Everything is modeled off the Xbox controller, and here's my Xbox One controller. The palm rests are more flared than the 8-bit Do, while Gamesir copied this design element, which I actually prefer. It fits your hands better. 8-bit Do went for the glossy action buttons with colored lettering, but the Gamesir's simple matte black and gray look is quite nice too. The triggers are almost identical to the 8-bit Do, apart from the obvious color difference. And the D-pad I actually prefer on the Gamesir, with a minimalist look and that lovely matte finish. All three have the multifunction button at the top, which is kind of par for the course these days with controllers. And while they'll never compete with that iconic Xbox branding, 8-bit Do has a really elegant white light here, while Gamesir have gone with this mismatched green, yellow, red, multicolored light depending on what you're doing, which for me throws off the whole look they were going for with the orange accents on the joysticks, which is a nod to the Steamdeck Special Edition OLED, which I also really like. However, the center cluster of buttons also has a lack of design flow for me, with their mode button at the bottom and then the black function buttons crowding around the multifunction button. It's all just a bit of a mess to me. Overall, in terms of design, the win goes to the 8-bit Do, even for me over the Xbox controller. But Gamesir have come up with a pretty respectable, beautiful controller here at 42% lower price point. And then the Gamesir comes in black and white, and they both have those orange accents. So before we work towards the Gamesir's biggest missing feature, let's focus on the main reason you would buy this. For $25, you get Switch, Steam, iOS, and Android compatibility via Bluetooth and via 2.4 gigahertz dongle. And that's the selling point. That's the reason why you would buy this. The fact that for this price, you're getting a controller that connects to almost everything. So let's quickly look at what you get in the box. You get the dongle, which is the 2.4 gigahertz dongle. You get the controller, obviously. And then you also get this very minimalist box, but the box does have a little bit of info on it about how to use it, and it's got a QR code to the manual, which save the planet, all that stuff. There's no dock and there's no charging cable. But the biggest win here is that you get this travel case. So it's not the most durable. These hinges are probably going to break over time, but you get this, and that is pretty cool. So you can put it in here, throw it in your bag, for travel, and it's done, or for storage or whatever. So that is quite nice. So now the most important part of any controller, how it feels. It feels pretty damn good. It's light, and that immediately does make it feel cheap. If you tap it, does have a little bit of a hollow, cheap sound to it. But to grab it in your hands feels natural, and the slightly grippy plastic at the back is nice. Not 8-bit Do nice, but it is nice enough. It's all about those little tactile experiences for me. All the buttons feel good to press, the membrane D-pad, the soft press function buttons, and the lovely matte plastic membrane action buttons. The joysticks felt immediately at first impression a little bit more snappy than I am used to, but then after using it for a week playing Death Stranding, which requires constant camera adjustment and the fighting scenes are really difficult to manage, I actually prefer dealing with those difficult parts of the game on the Gamesir Nova Lite rather than my Steamdeck controls. So that's saying a lot. The ergonomics are actually great. My only gripe is that the edges of these triggers are too sharp. I mean, that's a tiny gripe, but compared to the 8-bit Do and the Xbox controller, it just feels a little bit sharp on the edge of these triggers. And it is a little bit light compared to these other ones. This Xbox is a lot heavier, but for long gameplay, that's actually a positive. So a comfortable, light controller. So I'm just testing it out here on Forza Horizon, kind of just gradually pushing the trigger. Now, I do prefer the triggers on my 8-bit Do controller. And the reason for that is I feel like the triggers are just the right amount of squishiness and firmness. Those are the technical terms for triggers. These are proper triggers. So the more you press them, the more power you're going to get on the car. And these definitely do that. Like now, as soon as I go to full throttle, I can feel the full throttle. What I am noticing actually as I use it here silently with the sound off on my Steam Deck is the fact that I can hear the springs creaking in the triggers, which I definitely don't get in my 8-bit Do controller. So there's little things like that that are going to affect you buying a cheaper controller. So, and then the joysticks, they definitely pull to the center more. So you're getting more of a pull to the center. These joysticks on the Ultimate controller are more sort of floppy, if that makes any sense to you, whereas this pulls to the center more aggressively and snaps to the cardinals a little bit more than the Ultimate controller. Battery life, they've put a bigger battery in here. This has a 600 milliamp hour battery compared to the 480 milliamp hour battery. You know, it's got a dock, so it's going to charge easier. This obviously does die more on me, but as if you keep it charged, that charge does last quite long. I did a pretty long 3 to 4 hour session with this controller, and it wasn't even fully charged, and it lasted that entire gaming experience. Okay, so quickly to have this as a reference, to connect to Bluetooth for your PC, you press B and the home button. To connect to a Switch, press Y and the home button. To connect to Android, press A and the home button. And to connect to iOS, it's the same as the PC, B and home. And then extra features, 8-bit do have an app to do things. Gamesir does not. They don't have an app, but it is very simple. You go to the online manual and there's very few sort of features that you need to set up. There's even shortcuts to calibrate the sticks and all that sort of thing. And the Gamesir has a turbo function, so you can check in the manual to set that up. So on that note, you may have been looking at the footage of this device and noticed there's a button at the bottom that says M. Now, the fact that they don't have an app, they have used this button to do various things. And one of those things is the rumble motor is quite jarring. From what I can figure out, it's a low, medium, and high setting that you can set it on, but you can also turn it off. So I think I might just turn it off because the frequency of that rumble is a lower frequency, if that makes any sense. Like with the Ultimate controller, it's a this is a I don't know. Like it's a less frequent rumble and a more intense rumble. And so it just feels jarring in the hands, even at a low setting. So that is my first deal breaker. And the next one is the one that I've been kind of leading to. And this is the thing that you might not want to buy this controller for. And it's the fact that it doesn't have any back paddles. Now, for me, I've got my Steam Deck over here and thinking to myself, Steam Deck back paddles are quite hard to press to begin with. And I barely ever use them. I don't have that many games that have a regular need for back paddles. But if you are into some sort of game that you know, or you've just used to using the back paddles, you aren't going to like this controller at all. So for 42% less than the Ultimate controller, you're getting no USB cable, no docking station, and no back paddles. And a lackluster rumble motor. But you're also getting this travel case and a very light, comfortable controller.